It is amazing that a new theory can come up, which is called the gender theory, which says you can choose your sex. It is a question of our freedom, our liberty to choose whether we are men and women. This sounds very crazy because we all know we are defined in our biological sex. Everything is defined. We are different and on all levels. And there's this theory of we can choose. So change our sex. The woman who developed that theory into a philosophical system, her name is Judith Butler. She is an American professor and philosopher with a very high status. She teaches in California at the Columbia University in Switzerland and gets awards from she's a member of the Rockefeller Foundation, so she has the greatest possible influence. She wrote a book which is called Gender Trouble, Subversion of Identity. That was published in 1990, and she develops that theory, saying she actually put this term gender into the center. Our biological sex is irrelevant. Our gender, the social sex, what we are in society, is all constructed by society. So if it is constructed, of course we can deconstruct it. If we are unsatisfied with being a woman, let's be a man. This is very mad, but the amazing thing is gender theory is being taught at university. In Germany we have 200 professors for gender theory. They are all women, nearly all women, who teach this kind of outlook on what it is to be a human being. We should know a few facts about transgenderism. It is still classified by the World Health Organization as a psychosocial disease, maybe not disease, as a disturbance. Still on the list of diagnosis as a serious psychological condition. It is still there, so the insurances pay if you want to have an operation, or if you want to train your voice from high to low, if you want to have therapy for this. The facts say that the suicide rate and the rate of attempted suicide of transsexuals is 40%. It is much, much higher than suicides and suicide attempts of heterosexuals. So apparently it does not work if we do not accept our biological gender. We have to accept a lot in this life. We have to accept suffering which comes over us. We have to deal with it. We have to accept all sorts of things. Why not teach people? Why not use our therapeutic skills to find out what is the cause of this disturbance and find healing for this kind of disturbance? Now what we see is that this small minority is being used by the political organizations to proliferate this theory, you can choose your sex. And it is already going into the schools. In the United States, they had for many years, they had a school day, maybe even a whole school week of coming out for homosexuals. Now they have the same wave is beginning for transsexualism. They give children buttons. Do you want to be a boy or do you want to be a girl? I think this is criminal. I think this is really doing harm to children, and surveys of course show that the confusion of what I am, what is my identity, if you confuse this, you lead people into psychological disturbances. We should not do that. civil union was introduced in Germany in 2001. They used a day for that decision of the parliament when there was a big football match and very few parliamentarians were in the parliament. So it was a calculated strategy, and they had the legalization of civil unions. First, we should look at the arguments. The arguments are so that we can inherit, so that we can keep the flat in which we are living, so we can visit each other in hospital. I think there are very easy ways to regulate that. And living together is not only a question, or legalizing that is not only a question for same-sex people, it's for brothers and sisters, for friends who have a union in life, yeah? So if you legalize it, the sexual question should not be the criterion. The message is always, give us civil union, and this is what we need, and we will not go on. Of course we will not, it's completely different to marriage. What we see everywhere is that the movement works with step by step. We do the first step, and then we go on and go on and go on. First step, civil union, then we want adoption, then we want biotechnical methods of protecting the child. We had law reform in these aspects in Germany. Then we want to have tax relief for same-sex unions. In Germany, married couples, there's a system of that they have to pay less tax than singles, which is only just. Usually they have children. Now they say, we want to also to have same-sex couples, we also want to have tax benefits. And we have a judgment of the Supreme Court that they get tax benefits and even get the money back backwards for 10 years. So if you had a civil union 10 years ago, you will get all the money for 10 years. It is not very many people. The question is the principle. It is not about the money which is involved. It is the principle to acknowledge a same-sex relationship as marriage. Now the pressure goes on. Have it a complete equality between same-sex couples and marriage. This has not been legalized in Germany yet, but we see it is legalized in country after country. Now we have in the USA, we have the Supreme Court decision. It is forced on the country, although where you had referendums of the people, usually 70% say no. So it is not what the people want, it is forced on the people by the Supreme Court. So be aware, the strategy is always to do the first step, which is just possible, and then go on and go on and go on. And I think one should be aware and shut the door to this kind of strategy. We have discrimination laws, or they're called equality laws. It's the Equality Act in Great Britain, which is really a discrimination law, and the idea is that we are not to discriminate, that same-sex people in relationships should not have anything, they should be completely equal, nothing should go against them, not religion, not our conscience, whatever it is, yeah? So, and there's one dangerous fact in these discrimination laws, also as we have it in Germany. It's also called equality treatment in Germany. If you bring a charge against you, I say you are discriminating me, I used to have to prove that this is what you are doing. Now I can say you are discriminating against me and you have to prove that you are not doing it. Transfer of the burden of proof. This is very serious because we used to have a very good legal system. So if you say my rights are violated, you have to prove that I violated your rights. Now you could just concede, and I have to prove that I didn't do it. How can I do this? Yeah. So this is a very serious change of our law system. Now we see that these discrimination laws are being used against people who articulate the values which have been valid for a long time. Yeah. If we speak out, if we say we do not want to have these children books in kindergarten, we do not want our children to be taught that there are different kind of sexual orientations, they're all equally valid. We do not want to have homosexual couples come into schools and teach puberty boys how to come out. If we speak out against this, we are taken to court. We are criminalized. We lose jobs. We might even have to close down our businesses. Many cases like this in the United States, like a bakery refuses to bake a cake for a same-sex marriage, on which you have to write, "We are for same-sex marriage." They demand that they give that affirmation. They say, "I'm sorry, you can have the cake, we bake the cake for you, but we are Christians, we cannot put this on the cake." Consequence, they have to close their bakery. Yeah, a huge hype arises, a huge campaign arises, at the end they have to close their bakery. Or a church, a same-sex couple says, "We want to have our party in your premises." They say, "It's fine, have your party, but we can't do it. We are Christians, we have a different concept of marriage." They are forced to do it. If they don't do it, they're closed, or they lose their public funding, or they lose their tax exemption. Many ways of doing this. What is at stake is the freedom of conscience that is essential for the whole Western tradition of law and constitutional law. The freedom of conscience, because we believe we have conscience inside which tells us this is good and this is bad, and we have to obey it. If a doctor says, "I cannot kill a baby before it is born," my conscience tells me I cannot do this. They must have the freedom not to do it. In many states now, this is at stake. They are not allowed. They cannot become gynecologists because they have to practice abortion in their exams to become a gynecologist. Yeah, that's how they do it, step by step. There is a European website. It's called Intolerance Against Christians in Europe, and you find thousands of cases like this. In my own book, I have a chapter which deals with this case, with all this. This is my whole impetus. It deals with the new totalitarianism which is upon us. All this is becoming totalitarian. We are not respected as parents. We cannot practice our religion freely, our right of conscience, our right of free speech, our right of coming together, having our meetings, and so on. Basic democratic rights are being under attack and are being reduced or even taken away. And I've grown up in freedom and democracy for all my life. I'm alarmed by what is happening. We know our history as Germans. We know communist history. We know what happens if we do not respect fundamental rights of human beings. And I want that these rights are respected. The good news is that resistance against this whole ideology and this new totalitarianism is rising everywhere. There are mass demonstrations in European countries. There have been millions of people on the streets in France against same-sex marriage. This January, millions of people on the streets in Rome in Italy. Italy was the last country in Europe which did not have civil union nor same-sex marriage. In both cases, the left-wing chancellors or presidents used their power to nevertheless force the legislation into the country. in France, in Italy, in Spain. But many people have woken up. They have spoken out, and that is important. Yeah, it is important that we become clear, that we become courageous, that we open our mouth, that we defend our rights. And there are many organizations and movements. I meet them in many countries who do that kind of work. I've been invited here to Taipei and Hong Kong by the people who lead this battle, wonderful people who say, we have the courage, we must do something about it. We want to protect the family, because we all want to have a family. Everybody wants to have a family, and everybody thrives if we have a good family. So people engage in it, and we have to do this work independently of whether we will be successful or not. The power and the money is on the other side at the moment. But nevertheless, we engage in the battle and we feel good about it. We know we do something good. Our children will be proud of us that we have done this work. They will say, well, my father and my mother, she was on the street. She invested her energy, her free time, her resources in this battle. They will be proud of us. And we ourselves know it is good what we are doing. We are following our conscience, and it has a price, and we have to do this battle now, because we can be sure the price rises. But on the other hand, we don't know what the overall development will be. As Christians, we believe that we will win that battle. Not we, but Jesus will win this battle, and this is the source of our hope and the source of our strength and the source of our commitment.